Again, female, Asian, died of gastric cancer. Well, she died of pneumonia, but had gastric cancer. And I'll show you that because she has a fistula between her stomach and her small intestine. A fistula is a canal between two organs that should not be connected. Okay, so let's take her down a little bit, take off another layer. Whoops, wow, that took them all off. Let's not do quite that much. Okay, let's put her guts back on there. Okay, so when you take off the skin and the muscles, you can see that layer of fat over the abdominal area. That's called the greater omentum. It's a layer of fat that kind of keeps your organs in place and protected because, again, we don't have bone there. But if we had bone, we wouldn't be able to bend. That is not fat you want to lose. You would really if you have abdominal fat, it's more superficial than that. People who are anorexic sometimes lose this, and that can be dangerous as organs move around. So let's take that off, and you can see her intestinal system. This is her stomach. Okay, and I'm going to color that white for you, and I'm going to color her jejunum blue. And the jejunum is the second part of the small intestine. Whoops. Let's put her back together here. Sorry about that. I don't know quite why she moved like that, but that right there is her fistula. And I colored that red so you can see that. And make this a little bit larger. So her stomach is connected to her jejunum, and really food is supposed to go from the stomach through the duodenum, then to the jejunum, and then the ileum. The duodenum is kind of behind and under the stomach. This right here is her transverse colon, and I'm going to get rid of that or take that away. And then you can see the duodenum, and I will color that yellow. So food is skipping the duodenum, or some of it could if food is traveling through that fistula, which the duodenum is a place where the acidic gastric juice gets neutralized by bicarbonate. And without that neutralization, the enzymes aren't going to work very well because they want to be back up at pH 6 or 7, unlike the stomach, which is pH 1 or 2. And you guys in A&P 1 just we're learning about pH. Remember, low numbers are acid, high numbers are basic, and the body's pH is 7.4. If it drops lower than that, many of our enzymes don't work because hydrogen bonds break. And when the hydrogen bonds break in proteins, they unfold and they don't work. And so that's never good. Anyway, because the enzymes in the intestinal system tend to work at pH 6 or 7, you need that bicarbonate to neutralize. Remember, bicarbonate's like baking soda. It's a buffer. It helps soak up some of the acid and resist pH changes. And so you got to wonder if her jejunum, with stomach acid being dumped in there, if it hurt, like acid burn, intestinal ulcer type thing. And we don't know that. We don't get any information about the cadaver in that sense. Anyway, that's her biggest issue, is her gastric cancer. Now, if we look at her respiratory system, I'm going to put that back, and I'm going to take out some of the skeletal system. I'm going to take out the rib cage, and that will show you the lungs a little better. You can see the top part of her right lung there. I move this down. It's very full of blood. Her left lung doesn't look much better. It's kind of moved over there because the heart's beating. But this lung just really is not great shape. Big blood spots in it, filled with fluid. Not so healthy looking lungs. But again, she died of pneumonia, so not a big surprise. If we turn her over a little bit so you can see the left lung, it too has got a lot of blood in it, not very pink and aerated like it should be, which is, indicative of pneumonia. All right, so let's look at the heart a little bit closer. And I'm going to take away some of the arteries and veins. We're going to leave the big vessels, but we're going to take some of these out of here so we can see them a little bit easier. Okay, got to get those out of the way. This is the heart, and notice again it's tipped to the left, and it is covered with fat. And Kira, I don't know if you've dissected. I think you did, because I think I saw pictures. Dissected the heart. It is completely normal to be covered with fat, and there's probably was some fat left on your sheep heart when you dissected it. It's kind of an energy store, because your heart's got to beat like all the time, right? So without that, sometimes that's, it's not good. It's basically even if you weren't eating, you'd have that extra fat. But we're going to take that fat away, and now you can see the muscle wall of the heart. And because it's tipped, ventricle, you're going to see the right ventricle as you're looking at it right now. And I'm going to take away the lung, and we're going to tip her over a little bit. I'm going to take away the back part of, look how dark that lung is. Isn't that terrible? Okay, so now we're going to take away that. So back here is the left ventricle. So I'll color that one yellow, and the right ventricle we'll color it, how about green? Okay. And again, it's beating, so you can see that. But the way, the way you're looking at it, it's not up and down, straight up and down and symmetrical in the human body. The right ventricle, when it squeezes, is shooting blood up through the pulmonary arteries to the lungs. And the left ventricle is shooting blood up the aorta, which you can see the aorta there. Let's color that red. Okay, you see the aortic arch? Real nice picture of it there. There are 3 branches off the aortic arch, and then it goes down behind the heart. The first branch is the brachiocephalic artery. Brachial for arm, cephalic for head. It immediately splits into the carotid, the right carotid, and the right subclavian. Every time a vessel splits or goes through a major body wall, it gets a new name. The second branch is the left carotid, and the third branch is the left subclavian. So you only have one brachiocephalic artery. The venous system is more symmetrical. Okay, and then the subclavian, if it goes under the arm, or as it goes under the arm, is called the axillary. And then once it's down the arm, it's brachial. Once it gets past the elbow, it splits and becomes ulnar and radial. So you got arteries on both sides, subclavian, axillary, brachial, radial, and ulnar. And you have the exact same vessels in the venous system. All right, so back to the heart. You can see the right ventricle there in green, the left ventricle in yellow. If we split it open, and if we split right here, and I hit the area below, everything will disappear. And I'm going to turn it so we're going to look up. Okay, we're going to look up into those vessels. And remember, let me see if I can make this heart stop beating. It made it clear for some reason. You can see the vessels inside. But one of the things you can kind of see is the fact that the left ventricle, the walls are much thicker. The red, where the red is the artery, or is oxygenated blood. So this primary is the bronchus, secondary bronchi, left side, primary bronchus, and this is the right side. Trachea. I do not want to make this. I don't want to make it translucent. I'm going to undo that and put her back. All right, so you can see the heart. Pulmonary artery. And you can see the pulmonary artery. The pulmonary artery is carrying blood again to the lungs from the right ventricle.
Cardiac plexus. Ventricle.
There's the left ventricle, and we'll make that one green. Well, we'll make it white. And the right ventricle.
Thoracic vertebra. Esophagus.
I don't know why it's not coloring it very well.
Epicardial
fat. And let's color
ventricle.
This one yellow, and the left ventricle.
Ventricle.
We're going to color blue. Okay, so you can see the right ventricle in yellow and the left ventricle in blue back there.
Thoracic vertebra.
Okay, and we don't want the vertebra. But you can see, I wish I could show you the muscles a little bit better, how much thicker, or the left is so much thicker because the left is shooting blood through the aorta.
Third thoracic vertebra, esophagus.
And you can see the aortic arch there.
Internal thoracic artery. Fourth thoracic vertebra.
Don't want to show me all the. Let's get rid of some of the vertebra, the spine, and then we can see the heart a little bit better from both sides. If we turn her over, now without the vertebra there. And you can see the spinal cord, right, and the esophagus. But you can see the pulmonary artery, how it's going into the lung,
pulmonary valve.
What would be the lungs there. I'm not doing a very good job here, so I am going to minimize her, and I'm going to get a heart picture up and show you just that one to try to show you the parts a little bit better. Okay, this is the heart from one of the male cadavers, so it's going to be a little bit bigger than the Asian female, obviously. And we can go through some of those parts and then go back and show you some of the other anomalies in the Asian female, which again is cadaver number 2. If you watch the introduction YouTube, I talk about each one just real short and what each one has wrong with them. All right, so here's the heart, and we're going to try to make it bigger so you guys can see it even better at home.
Atrium.
Okay, there's the left atrium. See if we can color these.
Ventricle.
Left ventricle, make that red.
Inferior vena cava.
Inferior vena cava, we'll make that blue. And here's the superior vena cava. We'll make that blue. Remember, the vena cavas dump into the right atria. Or
atrium.
Let's get the right atrium. We'll color that one green. Okay, and you can see them dumping into that, and then it's going to dump into the
inferior pulmonary vein. Ventricle.
Right ventricle. Make that one purple. Okay. Can see the pulmonary artery. I'm going either side, and
aortic arch.
You can see the aortic arch. Color that red. Okay, so the vena cava is bringing it into the right atria, which dumps into the right ventricle.
Ventricle. Ventricle.
And you can see that that's in yellow. Then it goes out the pulmonary artery from the right ventricle, goes into each lung. It comes back into the left atrium.
Atrium.
Which is here. And then dumps into the
ventricle.
Left ventricle. And between those two,
pulmonary artery.
Ventricle. Between the left atrium and left ventricle is the bicuspid valve. All right, let's turn it to the front here. Here we go. All right, if I cut it open, let's see if we can see the thickness. Or how about, yeah, let's cut this way. All right, we look down at it.
Epicardial fat.
Oh, we're going to remove the epicardial fat. You can see valves in there
Pulmonary
really well.
trunk.
Pulmonary trunk.
Ventricle.
The right ventricle, it's not showing that. Let's go back to the normal. There we go. You can kind of see the difference
Ventricle.
in the thickness of the wall between the right ventricle and the left ventricle. How much thicker that wall is in the left ventricle, because it pumps blood. It's usually 1.5 inches thick versus 3/4 of an inch thick in the human body. We're looking at it from the back here. There we go. There's the front. Kind of cool. You can see the valves and where things go in. Okay. You can also see the pulmonary trunk here.
Artery.
These are the pulmonary arteries. See how they split to get into the lungs? Here's the pulmonary
Inferior pulmonary vein.
Veins coming back from the lungs. Make those pink. Going into, again, the left
Atrium.
Atrium. You can see at the end of the aorta right here.
Atrium.
That is underneath that.
Atrium.
You can see the semilunar valve going up into the aorta. You can see chordae tendineae over here in the left ventricle, holding down the valve. Okay, so you can really see a lot of different parts of the blood, of the heart in the big model here. Center that a little bit more for you. Okay. So again, vena cava to right atrium through the tricuspid valve to the right ventricle, through the pulmonary semilunar valve to the lungs, comes back through the pulmonary veins to the left atrium, through the bicuspid valve into the left ventricle, through the aortic semilunar valve, up through the aortic arch. And again, you can easily see these branches right here. The first branch, this one right here, is the brachiocephalic artery. It's only about 1.5 inches long, and it splits, and it gets a new name. It splits into the subclavian and the carotid, and that would be the right carotid. Okay, the next branch right here is the left carotid, and this branch is the left subclavian. Okay, and then down here, this is the descending or thoracic aorta, and as soon as you get down through the diaphragm, it's called the abdominal aorta. So if we look at the full cadaver again, and we take away her intestinal system, let's take away digestive system. Okay, you can see
descending aorta.
There's the descending aorta, also called the abdominal aorta. Oops.
Splenic artery.
The abdominal
Descending
aorta. Once it's through the diaphragm, let me color that red. All right, and the vena cava, there's the inferior vena cava. It is actually bigger than the abdominal aorta. It is taking blood back up into the right atrium. As soon as you get down here, it splits. Okay, splits into the right and left common iliac. That's only about 1.5 inches long, because then it splits again into the internal and external iliac.
Femoral vein.
Here's the external iliac.
Superficial
and then as soon as it gets through the
superior mesenteric
basically,
vein.
I can click on it.
External iliac vein.
External iliac vein. Okay, make that blue. Then once it's down here through the body wall, then it's the femoral vein. Okay, and then it gets down below the knee, it's the tibial vein. You also have a really long vessel called the great saphenous. That's the one that's pretty superficial. They'll pull a little piece of it out, reconnect it, but they'll take a hunk of it and to do bypass surgery in your heart. So if they need a little piece of vein, they always seal part of the great saphenous. There is no corresponding great saphenous artery. That's a one that doesn't match. There's a femoral artery, an external iliac artery, a common iliac artery, and the aorta, and then there's common iliac vein, external iliac vein, internal iliac vein, femoral vein, tibial vein. Everything matches from that point down, except the great saphenous. There's only a vein, not an artery. All right, so if we put her back as normal, and we start over, take off her skin, take off her muscles, we can take off her greater omentum. Okay, there's her gut organs again, and you can see her liver.
Superior
kind of
epigastric
up under
vein.
the
9. Rib.
Let's take away her rib cage again, so that we can see her guts a little better. The liver is your largest internal organ, and it's more on the right side than the left, right under the diaphragm. And if we take away the liver, we can see her gallbladder.
Lesser omentum.
So let's take away that. Her gallbladder's right there.
Gallbladder.
Color that blue so you can see it. She still has one, which is good. Some people have them removed when they have gallstones. If we take away the mesentery, which again holds the organs together, you can see hanging off her cecum is her appendix. So color that one red there. You can see that. It's about the size of your pinky, completely normal. So you can see her appendix pretty well. If we turn her over a little bit, this thing
Anterior,
right here is her
veins.
spleen.
Posterior intercostal veins.
You can click on it right.
Anterior intercostal arteries. Spleen.
There's her spleen. It's pretty small in her. The first cadaver, he died of leukemia. His spleen is really huge. So that's more of a normal size spleen there. All right, if I turn her back over and we look at her face and make this a little bit bigger, and I'm going to take off a little bit more of the ligaments and stuff. You can see some blue dots, particularly around her eyes. Those are screws. She had reconstructive surgery around this eye. You can see some of that there. On her maxilla, which is her upper jawbone. And there's some, I'll show you, I point to it with my pen. You see some of those dots right there? There's some there, and then underneath her eye as well. So she had reconstructive surgery on her face. Another thing you can see, let me clear that pen work. If I give her back her rib cage, you can see the bottom of her sternum has a hole in it. She has a foramen. Foramen means hole. I'll point to that in case you can't see it, but right there, you can see there's a hole in the bottom of her sternum. She probably didn't even know, probably wouldn't know unless you had this done, you know what I mean? Probably didn't matter. So that's a little bit interesting, some of the other things that she has going on. So she had a lot of stuff. Oh, I'll move her down. Oh, maybe I can't move her down if I have the pen tool. There we go. All right, so there's a little bit about cadaver number 3 and a little bit about the cardiovascular system and some of the things that are interesting about her. You guys have any questions?